Hi, welcome back to my channel. Thank you for joining me. I'm Luci of A Good Chat. So today I wanted to talk to you about some of the stress I've been seeing online around Christmas. Obviously 2020 has been a shocker of a year for a lot of people, particularly financially. A lot of people are not in a position to really get into the Christmas spirit this year, but there's absolutely no reason why you can't just get into the spirit of it, and why you need to be stressing over presents. Spending a lot of money at this time of year is not a wise move. A lot of places are just about to head back into lockdowns by the look of it. Some places never got out of lockdowns. It's been a shocker of a year. Financially, this means that a lot of us are struggling. So I wanted to show you some ways that you could make some Christmas presents yourself. Repurpose, recycle, reduce, reuse. And hopefully you'll get some really great gift ideas out of it that are very, very low cost, sometimes almost no cost. But otherwise, I don't think anything in here costs over like, say, $20. So the first thing I wanted to talk to you about is propagating plants, because this is a really great thing that I don't think it's done enough. So what we have to do is find a vase or a glass jar. They look really great in glass. You can use an old bottle. You could use an old wine bottle or anything at all. This I found for like 10 cents in a thrift shop. I found a willow tree up the road and I clipped a bit off of it. You can clip a bigger bit off of it if you want to, or more of them. Clip it off on an angle, stick it in water, stick it in sunlight. A couple of weeks time, it'll look like it dies off, but then it'll come back. It'll be great. Willow grows in anything. Don't plant it in the ground when you finish, just keep it in a pot. Another great one that propagates really easily is ivy. And look at that, is that not stunning? And that pretty much won't die off, that'll just keep growing. That's been in there for a couple of weeks now, and it's just doing, so that'll actually grow a root system, and you can plant it in a pot. Don't put it in the ground. They're considered noxious weeds in a lot of places. Stunning is that. And anybody that loves plants will probably really love things like this. You can do it with just about anything. So there's some bamboo I found, or just keep them in the jar. How cool does that look? That is really cool. And here again, you can see this is just a purple plum tree. I really like the geranium. Grows really gorgeously. I love geraniums, they're so easy. You can take that a step further. They don't have to be just propagated plants. You can actually just plant plants in vases and so here's one that I've actually done that is actually a Christmas gift. It's in a giant cup and saucer. How cool is this? How cool is it? I just chuck some charcoal on the bottom. Charcoal is about $5 a bag. You just chuck a handful of charcoal on the bottom if it's a non-draining one, and then stick some rocks over that so there is some draining. This is a succulent, so you won't water it very often. Not going to be a big issue. Just make sure you know what you're planting if you're going to use something that's not actually a planter. This is a vase that I picked up, again for about $2, and I stuck in it. I brought a pot. One pot got me several of these. I divided it up into several little plants. And this little palm was about $4 and it was so cute. Some rocks. I brought a bag of them for $2, but you can just use rocks. They help keep the moisture in when it's an open terrarium like that. You want to keep the moisture in, that's really important. You don't ever want these to actually dry out, but you don't want to overwater them because again, in the base, they don't drain. So a layer of charcoal, some little stones on top of that for drainage, keeps the water at the bottom nice and clean, or sweet, I think the gardeners call it. And this stuff has been thriving in there. So these will grow up, not very high. You can replant them later if you want to and put something else in there, or you can just keep them in there, it's fine. And if you want to get really fancy, there's the next step. I'd show you the bigger one behind me, but it's a bit heavy to hold up. So I'm going to take the lid off because it's sweating a little bit, so that's okay. It means that it needs to breathe a little bit anyway. A terrarium, not hard to make, really impressive looking, but there's it's filled with $3 plants. $3 plants, that's it. So this whole thing, this I think was $2 from a thrift shop. It's a big cookie jar. There's 2 plants in there plus the baby's breath. So cute, love it. They make fantastic gifts for people that kill plants, because leave them alone, they're fine. Once you've got them set up properly, the big thing is overwatering them initially because the lid goes on them. That lid's not actually sealed, so I'll just leave it off for a little bit. As a self-propagating system, it'll just keep going. You don't need to water it, don't need to touch it. Of course, also, you can just pot plants. You can see some around here. There's one behind me. That's a poinsettia. I love them. The Christmas plants, you see them out on special. Stick them in a nice terracotta pot. Keep them well watered. They will last all year. They'll grow really spindly and tall, and you can just keep trimming them down to keep them nice and compact. And then next year they'll flower again in the red flowers. Gorgeous. The next one is the old fallback that everybody should be falling back to. You don't need to be skilled in the kitchen to produce some cookies. So I went and brought some old tins from a thrift shop. In fact, in my case, it was a recycling shop. I washed them in really hot water, sterilised them. I have actual commercial steriliser, but if not, just use really hot soapy water, dry them out really well, maybe stick them in some sunlight for a little bit. Look, how gorgeous are those? Who wouldn't love getting those? Who doesn't love cookies? And the recipe is just a basic butter cookie. That's these ones here. And then you add whatever you want to it. So I added some chocolate chips for these ones. These ones are choc orange, and I stuck a big chocolate butt on them so that you can tell them apart from the choc mint at the back. Choc orange is just some orange cocoa powder from a choc orange drink rolled into the dough when you make the dough. Choc mint is just some cocoa powder and some flavouring essence just chucked in there. And I made a huge big batch of dough, roll it into a log, chuck it in the freezer. As I need gifts, I pull it out, I chop it up, 12 minutes in the oven, let them cool, chuck them in, slap a label on so people can see what it is. Put the ingredients on there. I recommend using a butter cookie recipe. You will find a million of them on Google. Just yeah, they're so simple. It's so hard to stuff them up. You can use cupcakes, you can use muffins, anything at all. Go and get a cake mix and make some cupcakes from it. It's really not hard. So you just make cakes or something and then stick them in a container, stick them in a basket, because everybody loves baskets. This basket was $1, and look, it's just got a bunch of crap in it that I was going to show you, and it just looks so cute. You could just give that as a gift, like, oh, here you go. Oh wow, I've got a candle in an empty jar. They won't care. It's gorgeous. So same as with the cookies. If you want, go and get glass jars. That's literally what I'm going to do with this one. Big huge glass jar, $1, and it'll just go get filled with cookies, fudge or something really easy. Look up a 2-minute fudge recipe, fill up a little jar with fudge and some cookies, and today you have a fantastic homemade gift that people will remember for ages. I get asked every year to make cookies and fudge for people. If you are really good in the kitchen and you know other people that aren't, if you wanted to do something a little bit out of the different, you think, oh, I don't want to make like cookies or chocolates or fudge or anything like that, you can actually also make some stuff that's frozen and give it to them. So hit the thrift stores for like a bread tin, and then make up a batch of dough and stick it in the bread tin, wrap it up in cling film and keep it in the freezer, and give it to a person that you know loves fresh bread but wouldn't have a clue how to make it. If you do know how to make a good sourdough or a good dough, or like a flavoured dough, rosemary and olives or something, or like some Parmesan cheese, anything in a bread dough, stick it in the freezer until Christmas, give it to them frozen and tell them to just stick it in the freezer, and with instructions on how to do that, on how to cook it. To just pull it out, let it defrost, let it rise for a couple of hours, pull it out overnight, and then the next morning stick it in the oven, and they'll have fresh bread that day. And I guarantee you they'll have never received anything like that, and they will love it. Everybody loves fresh bread unless you're gluten-free, in which case. So get creative. You can do frozen cookie dough, put it in a tin or a tray, have it pre-chopped up on a tray, give it to them frozen, then they can cook it at their convenience. Just make sure that if you get a tray that it's a little one, make it cute, keep it in a roll on there, just tell them to slice it up, stick it in there. There we go. Nobody said that gifts couldn't be frozen. You can do the same for sauces and soups and all sorts of stuff. Food is a really great gift for people. Some of the other things that you might find really easily in just about any thrift or op shop, anywhere in the world, is books. Books can be a fantastic gift. Even if they're not a particular reader, there's usually a topic of something that somebody will love. For example, I found Nigella. Heavenly God like Nigella. I love Nigella. This was brought for me, and this book was $3. Somebody got this, didn't like it, didn't use it, donated it. That's often what happens with books. If you know that somebody has a particular type of thing that they're into, I really like birds, and I used to get into bird watching. I still keep an eye out for birds, and this was a gift a few years ago that a friend picked up in a secondhand store. I think they picked it up in a specialty bookshop, but I love it. It's a field guide to Australian birds. Really meant a lot to me. Didn't cost a lot, don't care. Do not care. It's the book that counts. Something else that makes a really interesting and unique gift is, of course, art. So if you want to do an art project, like That was really easy and I really like it. It's actually a practice piece that I did with some alcohol inks. You can utilize what's online, how-tos and all that stuff, to find out how to do things that you don't know how to do. And there are lots of really easy art and craft projects that look amazing when they're done that you can utilize to give a gift. Now you can pick up canvases from secondhand stores. They don't cost much. They've often, well, nearly always, they've got other prints or old paintings and stuff on them. Paint over them. Easy. You get a really cheap, really big or small canvas to size. You can pick up old photo frames, pictures, anything you like at these op shops. Amazing. Repurpose them, put in family photos, do your own artwork, repurpose the art that's in one frame into another nicer frame. Another thing to consider when you're going into these op shops and thrift stores is mirrors. Reflecting nothing. Mirrors. You can often pick them up really cheap, but mirrors aren't cheap. They're never cheap. They're really expensive items. So if you can see a nice, that was a gold framed mirror I picked up a few years ago. It's just been sitting in my stuff. I'm going to put it up in my office wall. They make great gifts. They're often in really great condition, and even if they're not, reframe them. It's not hard. It's just like doing a picture, really. You can repurpose and reframe mirrors. You can repurpose and reframe art. You can also go and get a lot of craft supplies that are in op shops and secondhand stores and thrift stores, and give little bundles of craft supplies to people that are into crafts. Why not? They'll love it. Find bundles of vintage yarns or yards of materials that are really interesting packed. If you're crafty with a sewing machine, you can whip up a pillowcase, cushion covers, cushions for people, and repurpose and recycle some of the materials out there for them. You can pick up old clothes, old t-shirts, old shirts, and you can turn those into really nice gifts. It just takes a little bit of thought and using the utilities that we have around us. Now you're watching me on YouTube, that really implies that you have access to YouTube. There are 1,000,001 tutorials on this site that will help you make anything you can think of. Absolutely anything. Something else that you might get really lucky and find in thrift stores is that a lot of them have a lot of jewelry. Often it's really cheap costume jewelry, but that actually doesn't mean that you have to give it as jewelry. You can also give it as a decoration on something that you've repurposed. Putting a necklace that might otherwise just be a cheap piece onto a vase of flowers will really up the ante on what that looks like and how you present it. Now I got really lucky this morning. I found a couple of pieces that I'm actually going to just add to a present as a wrap. Check that out, isn't that really cool? It has dragonflies on it. Now the reason I got dragonflies is my mum really likes dragonflies. Everybody gets their owl stuff, it's one of those things, but she really likes dragonflies. So when I saw this I got really excited, and then I saw another one and I thought, oh, that'd suit my sister so much. So I picked that up for her. They're really cheap pieces too. They were $1.50 a piece. You could give those as a gift alone, or you could do what I'm going to do, which is use them to tie up something else, and then they could, once they untie it, they get that. So again, it just adds that really personal touch. Candles that you can make if you've got the resources to do them. If not, don't feel bad, it's fine. You can even find old wax from old candles in secondhand stores, thrift shops, all the time. Yeah, I saw some there today and I was so tempted to grab it and actually do a video to show you how to do it. I thought, you can figure it out. You just melt down the wax. Don't use a good pot. Use, again, from the thrift store, find $1 pot, beat up old crappy thing, use that. Because you'll never be using it for cooking or anything else again. You'll just want to keep it just for wax. But if you make candles regularly, it's a great investment. I've got $1 pot that I use it for. So I picked up a whole heap of these, the China cups. They were $1 each, and I got about 40 of them. There's a shelf full of them just behind me over here. There we go. There, that's what all these are. In between the poinsettia and the big pink plant. And I just dusted them with some pigment powder on the top because it looked cute. They look like slightly glittery that you can't quite see. Some gold shimmer and some pink shimmer. And these are actually available on my little shop on agood.chat. If you go into the shop section, you'll find these. And just as a quick note, here's a word from our sponsor, and the sponsor is me. So on A Good Chat, you will notice that there is a little shop. The reason for that shop is that everything that's on it, and there's not much. In fact, if you look during this video, there's nothing. These will be listed very soon, along with lovely little jar candles. There's limited quantities of them. The reason for that being is that they are repurposed, recycled, upcycled products. And the reason that I'm selling them is to raise funds to cover my costs, because I do a lot of pro bono work. I'm a counsellor, that's what A Good Chat does. I do a lot of pro bono work for particularly people with addictions that might not be able to be in a position to pay for services, and I don't want to turn people away. So I figured if I had a secondary form of income, that's one of the reasons why I make videos, in the hopes that I'll get some sponsors at some point soon, or make enough on AdSense to maybe make a few dollars that cover these costs so that I can continue to help people. I don't want to turn people away, but unfortunately I'm in a position where I don't make a heap of money from this. I am a one-person show. A good chat is my only source of income. So I needed to diversify and to make sure that I covered my costs, because I do actually do a fair bit of pro bono work and it takes up quite a few hours of my time. So if you do find yourself in a position where you think, oh, they're really cute, maybe jump onto my site and grab one. Unfortunately, for anybody that's not in Australia, I only post to Australia. These are difficult enough to post in Australia. But do know that it is going to a good cause. 100% of the proceeds do fund for people that are unable to pay for services, so that I can continue to just keep talking and keep them in a good place. That's what we're all about. So back to it. Another gift that I absolutely adore, it's much akin to the candles. These are fragranced candles. Oh, they smell so good. I just went and got some fragrance from Candle Supply, but you can just use essential oil or cheap fragrance oil that you'll find in discount shops, dollar stores, that kind of place. Just find a nice smelling one. There's bound to be one there that smells nice, even if it's like peppermint or eucalyptus or lemon. Just stick some drops in the candles and they'll smell fabulous. But you can also use what's left over to make these. That's a reed diffuser. You've probably seen these just about everywhere. It smells gorgeous. I've had these bottles for ages. Oh my God, that smells. I have actual supplies of this stuff, mainly because a lot of these are going onto a Good Chat's website as well. So I just mixed a few of the oils together to make something personalised when they're gifts, so that I'm not just giving out something standard. So yeah, it's not hard. You can find heaps of recipes online for how to do this with like a bottle of vodka and some water and some oil. It's really not hard to just chuck some fragrance in them. And the little reeds, you can even just use barbecue skewers, which you can find like a supermarket or somewhere, and then just chop them to size and they'll be fine. Just turn the reeds over after an hour of being in the diffuser. On a Good Chat's shop, they're actually going into these, which are antique vintage bottles that all come from a garbage heap, believe it or not, from about 150 years ago, I do believe, or up to. That's when it was started anyway. So it's literally their middens, and they'll be filled with these and they'll be stoppered and they'll be sold in the shop, and there's only a limited quantity. So if you want one, do jump over and have a look at them. But if this goes up before January, they're not going to be there until January, because I'm very busy over the Christmas period, and I do apologise for that. But they'll be up soon. So with the candles and the fragrance, the next thing is things on things. So if you go to the thrift shop, the op shop, you'll find, you know, like this was $2. It's a glass vase. It's a really weird shaped one. These I think come from florists. They come with like short, really full arrangements in them, and a lot of people keep the vase because they're like, ooh, but they're actually really just cheap. That's why florists, you know, they charge like $5 for them or whatever. But these are really cool when you stick other things in them. Stick a candle in that, and then when the candle's lit, it actually like reflects off of the edging, and it looks amazingly expensive and gorgeous and just divine. It's lovely. So a gift on a gift, I would stick a bit of blue tack on the bottom just to stop it from doing that and sliding around. That's a bit of a worry. This just sits on my desk behind me. But I gave one of these away recently for a birthday gift, literally just one of those, just like that, and they loved it. They just loved it. So it's always really impressive when you can do something like that and hit the mark really easily without even trying. So that's things within things. You can often find vases, vessels, and just stick other things in them, and they look amazing. Something to do if you're a creator. Yeah, if you know somebody loves something, go and get it for them, make it for them. Speaking of making, so this is tea in a glass jar. It was Earl Grey. I have bags of the stuff. I used to have a little tea company that I sold off a few years ago. And I had some bergamot tea, which is my absolute favourite to drink, generally speaking. Well, actually, it's not. It's my second favourite. My first favourite is French Earl Grey. I love that floral twist on them. So what I did was I filled up the jar with the tea, and then I added to it some lavender, some roses, some jasmine flowers, some honeysuckle, and I think there's some chamomile in there maybe as well. Most of those I actually have in my garden. and I just dried them on a rack for a few weeks in the sunlight in a little box. Dried them out, and then I chucked them in with the tea, and ta-da, French Earl Grey. It is divine. And if you know somebody that's keen on teas, that's a really great one. But if they're not keen on those sorts of teas and they drink herbal tisanes, then the other one is, if you've got a chamomile bush like I do, you can just make chamomile tea. So I chucked some lavender in it because, again, we've got a great big lavender bush out the front. So I just let it dry. I peeled it all off, and I chucked it in there with some rose petals and rose buds, again, from the garden. Let them dry. And in this one, it's got some Ozymanthus, I think it's called, which I had just as some buds, loose buds from a tea that I didn't particularly like on its own, and I blended it up with the chamomile. This is actually a personal blend. I made up a big old tin of it, and then I thought, oh, I've got a friend that will love this. Waving that around is making me want to sneeze. Yeah, so you just print up a label for it, put the instructions on the back of the ingredients so that people know what's in it. Ta-da, look at that, it's gorgeous. Who wouldn't love getting their own branded tea? Tisane in this case. This is laundry wash powder fragrance. So this is a bunch of ingredients that are really easy to get a hold of. I brought them in bulk, like literally in bulk, big huge bags of them, because I use them as my cleaning products. I don't use any chemical stuff. So it's bicarb, magnesium, Epsom salts, some fragrance, and I use something that is actually in there to absorb the fragrance and keep it. It's supposed to keep it all from getting wet, but it still gets wet. You can do the same thing with bicarb. If you bake bicarb, it becomes washing powder, washing soda. So if you want, you can bake it. I didn't bother. Yeah, I just mixed them all up with some salts, magnesium, the Epsom salts, regular salt. Chuck it in a jar. This stuff. Oh my God. A cheap bottle of fragrance, like in there. Just tell them to shake it before use, and like every time they see it, it'll clump up and blah, blah, blah. You don't care. 2 tablespoons per wash. Leaves your laundry smelling just divine. You will love it, I swear. And it's hypoallergenic, so it's great for people that have got allergies or bad skin. Anybody that I've given that to has absolutely loved it. Some people get a bit put off by the texture of it. I just don't shake it, break it up, doesn't matter. It's all good, don't be a drama queen. The next 2 things that I want to talk about, one is secondhand items. I don't know why there's such a stigma around them, because honestly, when you go through the thrift stores, the op shops, the recycle stores, people throw out the most remarkable stuff. Some people will throw out their entire house and buy all new stuff every season. A lot of the time it's because of Kmart culture and things where trends come and go really quickly in homewares, which is ridiculous. I say find a style and stick to it. Now I've got friends and myself that absolutely adore, well, look at this. It's a little oil lamp. It's really old, clearly it's an oil lamp for a start. This is really fragile. It's the original part to it. It's a little bit dirty from the thing, but I don't want to clean it because it's so fragile. It's like bubbled glass, and like it's like wafer thin. It is so thin, so thin. It's got a couple of little tiny chips on it, don't care. And then there's the little oil itself. Now the oil in there is just like lantern oil that I got from Bunnings here in Australia, Home Depot if you're an American. And then I put a few drops of the fragrance oil in there, and the one that I chose was Nag Champa, the Indian sacred smell. Oh my God, the soulage on it is fantastic. It's brilliant. When you burn this, it just throws it to the whole room. It is just, even just sitting there, it diffuses off. And now this is really gorgeous. You're not going to find it in a shop. It's such a unique gift, and when it's going at night with its little flame and it's all glowing and it's throwing off the smell, it is so lovely. And where are you going to get it from? It's so unique. If you've got somebody into vintage stuff, get them vintage stuff. This is the unique things that if they go to get it later on, it'll probably be gone. So just grab things. That was, I think, not even $1. I don't know if they even charged me for it, to be honest. They may have thrown it in with a whole heap of other stuff that I brought. This is a candy dish or an olive dish or whatever you want to use it for. I don't use it for either of those things. It's Maxwell Williams. Anybody in Australia, brand new, this probably would have been about like $20, $30. It wouldn't have been cheap. It is the perfect colour for my office. As you can see, my office is pink and blue, just colours that I find really calming, and this is my calm space. A friend got me this, and they accidentally left the price tag on the bottom, and it was $1, and I don't care. It is perfect. They saw it, they thought of me, they grabbed it, and I so appreciate it. Thank you so much. What difference does it make if this is brand new or if it came from an op shop? I don't care if it sat on someone's shelf for 10 years. You probably can't get this one anymore. These collections come and they go, and then that's it. They're really hard to find again. When it comes to secondhand stuff, you don't have to keep it original either. If you notice the vase just up here, this vase and this vase, and even these pots, and this vase over here, and there's a few more on the shelf up there that you probably can't see. There's a few behind me. I painted all of those. They came, this one down here in the corner, this was green. This one up here was, I don't ever remember, but I think it was like some god awful, like horrible yellow color. Terracotta pots over here. I painted them. This big one over here is actually a big glass one. This one, my finger's running down. It's a big, that weird, cheap import glass that was really popular in the 90s. I don't know how old you are, but it was really popular. It's really thick, like Coke bottle. And I just spray painted it with Rust-Oleum. That stuff is amazing and will cover everything. I really like the chalk finishes. They give things a nice pastel finish. You can see this here looks like a drawer. It's not, it's a weird little desk. I found that for $5 and all I did was paint it, not even very well, but as you can see, it looks gorgeous. If you want to do that for someone, grab it, just do a better job of painting it than me. This vase here, again, that makes a really great statement piece. And those reeds and rushes are literally from the local creek. I didn't pay a thing for them. And it sits on like $8 plate. And as you can see, the whole thing probably cost about $3 because the spray paint would have been the most expensive on there. And I use that for all of these other blue things that you can see around me. The pink, again, can of spray paint. You can repurpose and recycle, upcycle, change things, and then give them as gifts. And then you've put a lot of thought into these things. But the important part to remember is not to stress yourself out about Christmas. You can even go and grab a cheap bottle of vodka, a bottle of cream, and some chocolate buds. You can melt down the chocolate buds, mix it in with the cream, and then put it in a jar with the vodka, shake it up, and give it to somebody with a label on it, and make it as a chocolate vodka. You can do it with cream and coffee and make it a coffee liqueur. It lasts for about 4 weeks in the fridge. You don't need anything fancy. Your secondhand bottle will do. Stick it in there, shake it up, put a label on it, hand drawn, card on it. For the alcohol lover, I don't recommend giving alcohol as gifts. It's always one of those funny ones. But if you know the person, you know that they drink, that's fine. There's a million ways that you can do gifts that don't need to be expensive in the slightest. This year I took a personal stance and I just decided to do Thriftmas. I wasn't doing Christmas. Don't want it. I want people to put some thought into things and to go to a bit of effort to make things, to think about me when they're purchasing things and not just go off and buy things. It's not that you don't think about people when you're buying new things, but when you're doing it secondhand and you're thrifting things, you really have to put thought into it. Is this a nice item? Does it look good? What can I do with it? What can I put with it? Will they like this? Is this good enough to give them? Most of the time the answer is yes, it is perfectly good enough to give them. I prefer things that have had a lot of thought put into them and are unique, that you're not going to go to Target and see 6 of them for $5.99 next week. It's just a fact. Anybody that doesn't appreciate secondhand gifts is not somebody that you probably want to spend a lot of time with anyway. If your parents, friends, family are, they didn't make any effort with that, they can get stuffed. That's just a simple rule to remember, is if they don't appreciate things that you give them, regardless of where they come from, it's the thought that counts. If that thought is not good enough for that person isn't good enough for you. It's not that you've cheaped out and you don't put effort into things. It's that they don't appreciate things that are given to them. They don't deserve the time and the effort that you have put into things. And that's a simple fact. So I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope it didn't go on for too long. I do try to keep the videos at an interesting length without going on all day. I hope there was some inspiration. Merry Christmas to everybody. If I don't get another video up before Christmas, Merry Christmas for 2020. This year is nearly over. Hang in there, guys. It'll be over soon and we can get on with the next year. Aim for 2021 to be a better year. Love you guys. Thank you for joining me and I hope to see you again real soon. Bye.